killing people. And they lie to us. And if you ask them today, they'll continue to lie and say it's not harmful. Well, it is harmful, very harmful. If they're closed down, why are there still fumes coming out of, so what they said was, oh, they're cleaning the pipes over there. It's not hazardous. They told us it wasn't hazardous. If it's not hazardous, why do you need to put on hazmat to go in and clean up?
That was Tammy Reeves, a Grays Ferry tour guide, part of the Futures Beyond Refining project. Futures Beyond Refining is a growing collaborative community dedicated to researching and documenting life with refining and beyond. I'm Bethany Wiggin, Director of the Penn Program in Environmental Humanities, PPEH, and one member of this group working to collect better data, actionable data, about the refinery's operations and the environment it's long created.
I'm Maggie McNulty, a Master's of Environmental Studies candidate and PPEH intern. My research interests explore the intersection of environmental justice and history. As a Philadelphia native with family in the South Philadelphia area, Futures Beyond Refining became a very personal project to me.
My name is Alex Ambo. I'm a PPEH intern and a senior at Penn studying sustainability and environmental management. The first thing I saw when I arrived in Philadelphia as a freshman was the refinery. I was shocked. Now, finishing a senior thesis in energy humanities, my work foregrounds residents' lived experiences and their experiential knowledge. It examines how so-called non-expert knowledge can effectively influence public discourse on refineries and heavy polluting industries.
Our work together on Futures Beyond Refining is rooted in the work of the Schuylkill River Research Corps, a public history and community science collaborative created to collect diverse environmental data with the multi-species worlds and shifting waterscapes of South Philadelphia, and to imagine and create other relations between town and gown and between land and water. Much of South Philadelphia was formerly marshland, as much water as land, and today rising tides are returning, laced with centuries of refining pollutants. Until June 2019, the confluence of the Delaware and the Schuylkill rivers was site to the world's oldest continuously operating refinery. This petroscape is also home to a former naval shipyard, a sports complex, interstate highways, a major airport, a wildlife refuge, a botanic garden, and diverse humans, a significant portion of whom live at or below the poverty line. Life, with its tragedies and triumphs, is carried out in this sacrificed zone. We formed the River Research Corps in 2016 to try to apprehend the mixed-up anthropogenic ecology of the Schuylkill River. Our experimental projects cross science with art and have often been undertaken with artists. Here, you see Mason Rosenthal's Bartram's Robot. Bartram's Robot performed on the river in Between a Boat and a Green Place, written by Gillian Osborne and directed by Anissa George. The various experiments in the Research Corps that we've carried out, they consider what exercises are needed to build muscle in a sacrifice zone. And by muscle, I mean, what are the perceptive muscles, the sensory faculties? What are the artistic, the historical and scientific methods? What are the intellectual capacities and lived experiences? What are the collaborative communities and affective bonds that build the political will to develop methods and practices to represent, respond, and transform this rapidly changing anthropogenic waterscape so that it remains a sacrifice zone no longer?
The reclaimed land at the river's confluence was drained and diked from some 6,000 acres of historic marshlands that had proven so irresistible to settler colonists who later sold and sacrificed their agricultural lands to waste dumps and then heavy industry. Like many other areas along the eastern Atlantic coast, it is especially prone to storm surge and sea level rise, as waters return to the dried out lowlands that are, again, becoming wetlands. With a global temperature rise of 1 degree Celsius in 2100, estimates from the center of a range of scientifically assessed possibilities place rising tide at 7 feet or 2.1 meters higher than historical high tide levels. With a 4 degree rise, the high tide line is pegged at 29 feet or 8.9 meters higher than since climate forecasting began.
The Research Corps' rhizomatic projects have generated an open access living archive of and for the river, home to past and future river stories, to historic data and speculative futures. This living archive scrambles time, troubling linear narratives which leave us stuck in the Anthropocene. Like the tidal river, the projects documented in this living river archive, they flow forward and back, carrying documentation of inheritances from the past and loaded with stories that will have become. The archive constitutes linkages across present and past in the act of constructing and actualizing possible futures. Who makes data and how that data are stewarded and circulated matter. To represent and address the extractive logics that created the sacrifice zone, we committed to creating data with and in community. We get out of the university lecture hall, we move out of our labs, and sometimes we work literally on the river.
Our river research workshop that you see here happened on campus, and it also provided a venue for researchers across academic institutions and neighborhood organizations to learn about each other's projects and goals. We extended these conversations by moving off campus. In summer 2018, we offered a summer field school, and participants' projects there also inform our work in Futures Beyond Refining.
I think a lot of the exercises that we did at the on-water intensive were really geared toward promoting this bidirectional flow between community members and research. So on the one hand, having community members use the research in various aspects of the Schuylkill River and their projects, whether that be creating educational materials or helping people understand their health as it relates to the river. And on the other hand, having community members become stakeholders in research on the Schuylkill River.
We really wanted to be on boats, in part because we wanted to be able to look at certain bioindicators in the water that we could only really measure from a boat. But there's something incredibly powerful about the boat as a metaphor. We're thinking about the kind of collaborative communities we need that will keep us afloat in a watery future. We're thinking about the ethics of collaboration. Who floats in, who floats out? And so that's what we're really practicing. And we really believe that it's these collaborations that can lead to effective action on climate.
A massive refinery fire that lit up Philadelphia in June 2019 also galvanized our world. Before that especially scary time, many of us had sort of assumed that we were stuck living with oil, at least in the midterm. The fire and its aftermath burned that all down. You are about to hear this slide. The refinery worker and filmmaker Bilal Motley. He's going to talk to you about what it was like the night the refinery blew up while he was working a graveyard shift. This clip is from Bilal's film, forthcoming, Midnight Oil, and it was made in the immediate aftermath of the refinery explosion. Bilal worked in the refinery for 15 years, and before you are able to watch the film when it's widely released, you can already hear more about his work as an artist in episode 8 of Data Remediations.
Like I got a son on the way in October, acid, unit on fire? Shit. And then I see the big blast.
Bro, what the f? I can feel the. No, I can feel. Bro, I can feel that. What the f is going on, my guy?
Holy sh**.
I've never seen anything like that. I thought everybody was dead.
Futures Beyond Refining was born in the weeks and months after the explosion, amidst tremendous uncertainty about what would happen to the heavily damaged facility. The owners declared bankruptcy and moved into a rapid sale process. In that context, Futures Beyond Refining brought university and neighborhood partners together with the shared goal of highlighting neighbors' experiences of the uncertainty of life with the refinery across generations.
One of the national data storytelling projects supported by the National Geographic Foundation, Futures Beyond Refining addresses the data poverty generated by centuries of slow violence, a series of historical events that have turned South Philadelphia's historic wetlands into a data desert. In recalling and recovering willfully forgotten histories, the project connects those histories to various possible futures that can restory the land and the river. Like work in the environmental humanities more broadly, this project aims to inhabit a difficult space of simultaneous critique and action.
Drawing on theories of agential realism by Karen Barad, students in a graduate seminar in environmental humanities first conceived of Futures Beyond Refining. We considered, in Barad's words, the necessity of a performative understanding of scientific practices. And to make Futures Beyond Refining, we worked to develop a practice that takes account of the fact that knowledge does not come from standing at a distance and representing, but rather from direct material engagement with the world. And so we began the Futures Beyond Refining project with work at a high school next to the refinery with community members. Working groups of two one night, we quite literally mapped, plotting symbols and sticky notes, ways of being, behaving, and belonging with the refinery, asking neighbors to identify places of memory and importance in the neighborhood on a set of printed maps. The session helped us co-ideate project goals and documentation methods. Together, we decided next to develop a refinery fence line tour that would be guided by neighbors, with students and faculty ensuring that both live and digital versions of the tour would be available. Walking through this roughly mile-long path with Mrs. Reeves, Mr. Reeves, and Miss Toby, you also travel through time, suddenly finding yourself decades back as a child playing alongside the boy Charles Reeves in the refinery. As you reach the park, you hit your teenage years with Miss Toby, and you're shaken by stories of life and death. You smell the refinery. You feel the refinery. You inevitably imagine what has gone on here for so long and what now this land might turn into. Grasping the full intricacies of our imbrication with this energy system requires a journey not only through the neighborhood, but because the refinery is so large, you have to actually gas up and drive its eastern side. On the tourist trolley, you're surrounded by the heavy industry that neighbors have lived with for years and with which visitors have experienced already on foot. But getting as close as legally possible, the tour invites riders to take an active role in their participation, counting how many tanks they can see. Together, the walking and the driving portions of the tour commemorate what was sacrificed, who was sacrificed, what was, and what was not consented to spontaneously and without acknowledgement.
As part of Futures Beyond Refining, students conducted ethnographic interviews with long-term residents of the adjoining neighborhood after a training workshop with Davey Niddle. Documenting residents' experiences helped us come closer to understanding what it's like to live near the refinery. The interviews laid the groundwork to develop the walking and digital tours. They also allowed contributors to specify which stories they wanted shared publicly and which were only to be shared with trusted interlocutors. Hearing these stories and developing the relationships that we did made working to realize futures beyond refining imperative. Listen here to this clip from an interview I conducted with Mr. Charles Reeves in his home. You'll hear the sound of a chirping battery and a smoke detector. You'll also hear Reeves talk about how, for him, the refinery was a way to escape the projects, public housing he grew up in a racially divided neighborhood. Lanier Park wasn't welcoming to Black children, so instead he would cross a footbridge that led into a formerly grassy area inside the refinery.
The refinery to me is funny because when I remember refinery, I remember that place where I used to go across the railroad tracks to do stuff, and walk down there and ride my bike, and going across this bridge that led right to the refinery space with my girlfriend and walking. So refinery to me was never a bad place. It was an isolated place. So when I wanted to get away from the projects or get away from, you know what I mean, or me and my friends wanted to go on some missions, we would ride our bikes down there. So it was just like another, another escape route where we could leave the projects for a while. So we never thought about it as dying. Nobody never told us that we was dying.
To expand upon this public engagement project, a collection of interviews has been transformed into a digital collection and virtual exhibit. The curated, historically driven exhibit explores the Grays Ferry community throughout 5 different time periods, shown here. It starts with historical images of Grays Ferry from the 19th century, gives an overview of Philadelphia's industrial history, illustrating early images of the refinery, residents Tammy and Charles Reeves have brief audio clips in which they talk about their experiences of growing up in South Philadelphia. There's a present day page, which focuses on the explosion of June 21st, 2019. Residents share their experiences, which has helped inform us of how we understand this event and the urgency for futures beyond refining. The last page of the exhibit historicizes the future, which has the potential to help us think with and advocate for a future we want, a future beyond refining. The exhibit ends with an audio clip from resident Mr. Charles Reeves about how he believes the refinery complex should be transformed into a cemetery. I'm going to play the first 20 seconds of his clip, but due to the fact that this is being recorded twice over, it's kind of inaudible. Next to his clip is a transcript.
I want it to be a cemetery. I think it should be a cemetery for everybody who can't afford to bury their family. That's what I think. Really, that's the truth. In my heart, put some flowers around there, and some trees and shit, but bury people in there, because it's already killed people. Bury people in there for free, right? If they're ones that can't be, because people dying every day.
The exhibit is a work in progress and will be published this summer. I'll be handing off this material to future PPEH interns to continue to conduct oral histories and develop the online collection and exhibit.
And we want to feature one voice from the future. This is a student from one of our Futures Beyond Refining workshops. He's an 8th grader, and he speaks as if from 2100, telling us about the future when he will be 94 years old and about the South Philadelphia that he will have seen become. You can follow along with what he says in this postcard that he also wrote.
Dear Donald Trump, I am a 94-year-old man living in what these kids nowadays call hover homes. We have marshes keeping our water blue and clean, boat taxis that take you places, and everyone swimming in the pools and stuff. Thank you. Well, not really thank you, but You need to help us. From a citizen. P.S. Back in my day, we had wheels. Now we have boats. Dear Donald Trump.
The final word returns to Tammy Reeves, who also began this talk. In this audio clip, Mrs. Reeves is speaking to 8th graders on our March walking tour, and she's emphasizing the importance of collaborative research communities to create futures beyond refining.
Killing our kids is sad. It's really sad. Listen, let our voices be heard. You know, I don't care how y'all got to do it, if you're studying it or whatever. Let our voices be heard, because this is a step far greater than anything that anybody has ever done.